The long hallway narrowed as Manuel slogged on the blue and grey stone pathway beneath him. The shrinking corridor was not a trick of the mind, but a tactic devised by the architects and masons who built this institution. Those travelling this path are meant to feel as if the walls were encroaching, unnerving the mind and creating a suffocating experience. There was also little light in the hallway, and that was also by design. The dying lights emulated hope fading. The few lit torches flickered for life, clinging to the stone walls and encased in a metal grating so only the lamplighter could tend to them. Manuel recalled an event from many years ago, before the torches were bolted behind a cage. A defendant was forced to walk down this hall. To avoid judgment, the assumed guilty took a torch from its cradle and lit himself on fire. The smell of burnt flesh and hair plagued the hall and the inner chamber, causing the council to cease all official meetings for weeks. Although Manuel could not recall this individual's name or their crime, he did admire their resolution. Such drastic actions typically inspire change on a grand scale. In this instance, however, the non-publicised incident only created a mistrial, delayed cases, and inspired slightly less accessible lighting. There were rumours that the pungent odour still clung to the stone and polluted the air to this day. However, Manuel was thankful that this wasn't true, for the air was stale and devoid of sensation. Now, approaching his destination, a closed wooden door at the end of the hallway, another step closer, and the grinding of metal followed. Manuel exhaled, long and slow. Whatever waited inside would not be patient. However, he stopped to stare at the mural above the doorway despite the urgency. It was the only significant difference in this bleak and repetitious passage, so it drew the attention of every soul before they crossed the threshold. The imposing mural was hand-painted on canvas before being affixed to the wall. The point of view is from one of the attendees in the public gallery of a busy courtroom. The audience's features are non-existent, but their frozen poses suggest that they are celebrating the decision made. Within the painting, high above the courtroom in the lodge seats, individuals representing the council look down with grim yet satisfied expressions. Although reserved in motion, the council appears pleased with the declaration of justice. The mural's focal point is a blindfolded woman in white robes in the centre of the courtroom floor, balancing a golden scale in one hand and holding a bloody dagger in the other. Two items compete on the scale of justice. A freshly removed heart, pooling with blood, is heavily outweighed by a tome of laws or knowledge, a visual metaphor for weighing intentions versus policy. The condemned kneels before the audience in chains, head down in defeat, with an open chest wound. The illustration beautifully damned those about to enter the chamber. After a bit of time, footsteps shuffled on the other side of the dense wood door, and the sound of locks clanking let the Cardinal Ambassador know he was to be received by the council. He instinctively took a step back and stood at attention. The massive door creaked loudly in defiance before giving way to the forcible pull of the watchman guarding it. The lifeless air within the hall was vacuumed into the spacious chamber as the wooden barrier swung open. Behind the door, the peacekeeper appeared and beckoned Manuel to enter. He assumed the fellow controlling such a solid hatch would be parallel in size to the door, or, at the least, freakishly bulky. To Manuel's surprise, the guard was quite regular in stature, which meant Manuel towered over him. The guard's expression was calm and indifferent. His blank expression suggested that this show of strength was routine, and a significant figure from the kingdom appearing behind the door was just another workday to be treated lackadaisically. The guard casually motioned to the royal mage to enter. Despite the psychological masterpiece looming above, Manuel confidently stepped forward, exiting the stifling hallway into the airy council chamber. The doorman, suited in his royal armour, continued to show no interest as the ambassador passed by, but briskly moved to close the opening and re-secure it with several locks. Manuel noted that the exit was blocked, but he had no plans to escape, so he sauntered towards the stand in the centre of the chamber. Through his peripherals, Manuel could not see one attendee in the audience. There were no gasps, mutterings, or slurs to greet him, as he imagined the gallery had previously welcomed others in this hall. In contrast to the crowd within the mural, the chamber's emptiness could have suggested inconsistency, or the artist could have been exaggerating the importance of the law in Veryandes. However, Manuel knew his summoning was a special case, and the council would treat it with fragility. They wouldn't risk looking like fools, and until they gathered enough knowledge to appear omniscient, nothing would surface to the public.
Remove your brooch, sir.
A voice boomed from the loge seats. The sudden disturbance startled Manuel, who reached to remove the decoration from his chest of garments, but hesitated only briefly. The short delay prompted the same individual to respond hastily.
All who stand before the council are equal in this room.
The voice grew louder.
To others, you are Manuel Finley, the Cardinal Ambassador, a royal court mage, most favoured by the monarch. Here, titles lose significance, as do past charitable acts and favours. No previous laurels shall protect anyone who stands before the council from unbiased judgment or punishment. As an educated and high-class citizen of the Kingdom of Veryandes, you are familiar with the laws and know that each individual is accountable for their actions, words, and treachery.
Indeed I do,
Manuel agreed. His voice carried and echoed throughout the room. With that, he quickly unpinned the brooch that signified his royal affiliation and placed it on the podium before him, keeping his left hand on top of it, concealing the breastpin within. From where the mage stood, his eyes strained to make out any clear distinction from the shadowy figures above. This veil of secrecy safeguarded those who served in the law room from retaliation for subjectively unfavoured decisions. It also kept the interrogated from attempting to manipulate or pit members against their values. These countermeasures ensured that the council always had the upper hand, leaving no exploited weakness. However, there wasn't much information within the kingdom that Manuel could not access, especially if it was vital. His observations, ability to focus on quality research, and fortitude to execute impressed the monarch so much that he was the first arcanist recruited by the royal court. His enthusiasm for the occult inspired the monarch to charge Manuel with creating and overseeing an entire sect of magic users, prioritising the empowerment and defence of the royal court. With that kind of importance, the identities of those dominating this council could easily be discovered, but they were also of no concern.
Manuel Finley.
Another voice spoke up, distinct from the first. This older gentleman's speech was dry and raspy. He spoke slowly and articulated carefully, as an experienced mentor would, sharing something profound.
You came here of your own volition. No official summons, no binding command. A member of the royal court subjecting himself to the clemency and integrity of the collective legislators happens seldomly.
Yes, this is quite the anomaly.
An upbeat, yet sarcastic third voice chimed in. This assertion was met with amused chuckles from a few of the group gathered above.
I do come by my own free will,
Manuel responded confidently, causing the snickering to subside.
Why?
Another silhouette, the fourth voice, asked.
Are you aware that implicating yourself is synonymous with being condemned?
The interrogator sounded modulated and in control.
I am aware.
Manuel nodded in agreement.
However, at risk of appearing snide, if that were a true concern of mine, I would have thought twice before bringing you the truth.
The Cardinal Ambassador reasoned, his words resonating within the silence of the chamber.
That is a fair declaration.
The council elder eventually retorted.
yet one that needs to be proven.
The original speaker said,
We will examine your recollections of events impartially, and we will not surmise your testimony.
This is not only understood, but expected.
Manuel concurred.
I am here to share my perspective, provide ample information for you to deliberate, and ultimately aid your conclusion.
The mage lifted his hand from resting on the ornate brooch and gestured with both arms toward his listeners, as if the answers were expelled from within.
I can only provide my truth. Whether you believe it or not is entirely up to you. But I will answer any question, provide context, and clarify as needed.
Very well.
The first orator accepted the ambassador's response, smugly adding,
You know what is at stake here, Finley.
the tone of delivery from the adjudicator intended to antagonize Manuel. However, he withheld a visible reaction. Even though the official's face lay veiled by darkness, the sudden hush of banter suggested his expression matched his dissatisfaction.
I am quite sure he does.
The elder said, sounding irritated with his counterpart.
No mere plebeian stands before us. He has access to a wealth of knowledge and the resolve to apply it.
The council member leaned forward and asked,
You are one of the monarch's most prestigious advisors?
That is correct to presume.
Manuel humbly answered.
With such a surplus of comprehension, how could you not spare some for observation and judgment?
The pointed question from the elder was unexpected.
Can you please be concise about what you are asking?
Did you know the truth about the subject? Were you aware of the young man?
I had a hunch,
Manuel admitted.
but honestly, the boy didn't even know his true nature.
I see. So an all-powerful mage could not properly conduct a threat assessment.
A listener snorted.
That is your opinion.
Manuel hesitated, searching for the correct words before continuing.
However, not many can detect latent ability in others or the possibilities that follow.
There were no signs?
The elder asked the question with genuine interest.
Of course there were signs.
The fourth voice chimed in.
There are always signs. It just so happens that you aided one of your little pets in transcending our indoctrinated limitations. Isn't that correct?
Partially true. It was apparent that the boy was gifted, clever. He radiated differently than everyone else.
And instead of bringing it to anyone's attention, you offered counsel. You believed you could help without knowing the boy's affliction.
Instead of answering the question, Manuel raised his own.
Is naivety a crime? Is it against the law to help others realize their potential?
I'd say so when their potential results in war crimes and defiles the laws of nature. This council may certainly regard your question as self-incrimination.
The fourth voice responded pragmatically. Manuel thought and spoke swiftly.
Are we not each accountable for our actions, words, and treachery?
Unrepressed grumblings escaped the men seated high above. Manuel felt like he had kicked an insect nest and mentally braced for the riposte. Instead, the men quarrelled about something inaudible. However, it was clear that they disagreed on how to proceed with the investigation. The voices spoke over each other, and even though Manuel could identify which voice belonged to each personality, he could not isolate any particular phrases to follow. He concluded that the discussion would resolve itself momentarily, and there was no need to be interested. To redirect his attention, he spent the interval palming the brooch and looking over the engravings with mild admiration. The weighted metal in his hand, bearing the insignia of the royal court, symbolized Manuel's significance to the kingdom of Veryandes. At the moment, he appreciated that an object could convey his value, and he did not need to compete with the egos of the others, including the pretentious individuals disputing high above him. After a few minutes of debating, the muttering stopped. Manuel gently returned his crest to the podium, and listened attentively.
We acknowledge the noble intentions of your heart.
The first voice responded, contrasting the snarky attitude previously portrayed. After a momentary pause, the voice continued,
We currently lack the necessary information to determine your level of involvement with the subject's conduct. But do not assume us ignorant. Your course of action, virtue, and discernment shall all face evaluation as we decipher your recount of the events. Speak carefully, as not only your life, but the well-being of others rests upon your tongue. It is the truth we are seeking, and not blind retribution.
I understand.
Good. Now, let us begin.
Manuel simply nodded in agreement.
In your own words, from the beginning, tell us what happened on this unsanctioned mission.
One of the voices commanded, as Manuel closed his eyes to reach within.